Hello, church. It is Pastor Steve back with you here for another edition of our Monday Minute for May the 13th of 2021. We are halfway through the season of spring, and we're approaching the day of Pentecost this coming Sunday. What we're really excited about that for this Pentecost Sunday is looking forward to getting back to in-person worship with our hybrid worship service that we will celebrate this coming Sunday. If you have not had a chance to see our video talking about all of the requirements and things that we'll be doing as part of our return to in-person worship, please do check that out. Our communications director, Ali Belsky, has put that together. It's available by looking for it on our Facebook page, on our other social media, our YouTube channel, and you can also find that through our website as well. I encourage you to go back and see that if you have not seen it from this past Sunday. It has all of the information that you're going to need, including pre-registering for the service, which you can do starting today for this Sunday coming up. A lot of things are also in the works for outdoor activities. Please look for future details coming forth about our farewell for Pastor Lynn, who is retiring at the end of this month, and also to celebrate Reverend Gassaway's ordination as a deacon, and that celebration will be coming up in June. Again, watch your email, follow our newsletter or our social media, and again, check the webpage for those details. As we reflect this week on a lot of the things that are happening right now, we can see that there's a lot of rapid changes coming our way, and all of them are seemingly in a positive direction as our case numbers come down with the pandemic, and it looks like we may, knock on wood, be finding our way out of this. The new guidelines from the CDC, along with Governor Whitmer and the State Health Department, as well as Bishop Bard, give us encouraging signs. And we're all longing for the day when we can put all of this behind us. Personally, I've already had a list of people asking the same thing. What do these new mask restrictions mean for us for next Sunday? And for the future, for that matter. As with everything these last 14 months, we know that things continue to change rapidly, and as we learn more and as things evolve, we may have to change and we may have to adapt. And hopefully this time we can adapt in a good way. But we also need to be prepared to still take a step backwards if we have to as time progresses. As I have had a few days now just to think about what this all means from lifting the mask mandate for unvaccinated people, there's a scripture that I just preached about a short while back in January. It comes from Paul's first letter to the Corinthians. And that came to my mind as I've been thinking about all of this. In the 8th chapter, Paul addresses the issue that was the problem for the church there in Corinth, which was specifically eating meat that was sacrificed to idols. Now, the new Christians, who were former pagans, they were appalled to see that the more mature Christians were eating freely as if it was no big deal. And yet, they were told constantly that as followers of Jesus, you don't worship idols anymore. They couldn't separate the two. Meat that was offered in a sacrifice to an idol was oftentimes later on sold for consumption in the marketplace, and these more mature Christians would simply buy it and eat it. But for them, it was an issue. Because if it was sacrificed to an idol, would that not be participating in idol worship if they ate that? Now, that's not a big problem for us today here, but Paul's instruction to the church as we look at now what things are happening in our own time, I think offer us some good advice. He responds to the Corinthians saying, look, we all know that these things, these idols, have no real power. But to the new among you, they don't know that. So consider what you do when it comes to someone else's faith. In the 6th chapter, as he talks about other things that are appropriate and not appropriate, he says this, all things are lawful, but not all things are beneficial. Here he reminds them that knowledge is what puffs people up, but it is love that builds people up. love of our neighbors, all of our neighbors, no matter what stage of their journey of faith they're on. In verse 8 here in our chapter where Paul is talking about eating meat sacrificed to idols, he says, look, we are no worse off if we do not eat, and no better off if we do. But, he says in verse 9, take care that this liberty of yours does not somehow become a stumbling block to the weak. Yes, fully vaccinated people can go without a mask. I'm glad to count myself among those folks. But the question, as we apply this to our church or to society as a whole, is how do any of us know who really is or isn't on the surface? Several businesses are taking that approach, saying that people will need to be masked still in their stores. Part of this is, again, how do we know, let alone enforce these new rules? But from our perspective as a church, especially when it comes to loving our neighbors and putting others' needs above our own wants, as Paul describes here, we will still wear masks for at least the immediate future, lest we put a stumbling block in anyone else's way. Currently here in Michigan, just a little over 55%, almost 56%, 55.7 to be precise, of those 16 and up have at least one shot. But only a little over 44% are considered fully vaccinated. That's 2 shots plus 2 weeks. The real-world experience of the vaccine's effectiveness is encouraging, but we still have less than half of our state population fully vaccinated, and the same numbers hold relatively true for here in Wayne County. So with that data and our own inability to track vaccination here, for the next few weeks, as we reopen for in-person worship and other activities, we're going to follow Paul's advice here as he says that we may not cause one person to stumble and fall. All things are progressing, and we are glad for that. And more information as it becomes available, we of course will have to make adjustments according to those things that we knew, and this will be no different. But for now, while we take this first step of returning to in-person worship and other activities, let's not take the freedoms that people who are fully vaccinated have for granted. And let's do our part to continue to take care of one another for at least a little while longer. We've made it this far by God's grace, and we can make it the rest of the way forward. So let's do our part. And over these next couple weeks, we'll continue to wear our masks when we gather for worship, and we will continue to love our neighbors as we love ourselves, so that we don't take this new knowledge that we have for granted and not put a stumbling block in anyone else's way. We are, however, looking forward greatly to seeing people back together in worship in person this Sunday as you are able, and in the weeks to come as we look hopefully to expand more and more to in-person worship. But for now, I'll be back here again next week for another edition of the Monday Minute. So until then, please stay safe, God bless you, and have a great week.